Hey everyone, welcome to the series that I started in order to educate both you and myself on how computers and technology work down to their core functionalities. My name is Jerry, and this is Computer Essentials and Everything Tech. I'm very excited to start this series. There's just so much to learn, so much to go over. And even just in this very first episode, going over the notes and everything that I had to research for this episode, it was a lot of information. So with that being said, let's dive right into it. The very first question I have is, what is electricity? And the answer I got ultimately is electric current, or this is known as the flow of electric charge. And in order to understand what this means, we got to look a little deeper. When we look at the fundamental, sorry, I'm like stuttering. Okay, when we look at the things that make up an atom, the subatomic particles, we get protons, ions. We get protons, electrons, and neutrons. So ultimately, these electrons are what is mainly responsible for the electricity that we use in the modern day. Now we're gonna get a little bit. Now we're gonna get a little bit more specific. Protons carry a positive charge, while electrons carry a negative charge, and both of them carry a charge. So this brings up the question for me. How exactly do we get electricity? Like what is electricity, and what causes it to flow is really the question. There's something known as voltage. In certain materials like copper or general metals, electricity, it flows easily. Electrons flow easily through those metals, and what this allows is what this is called is a conductor, right? Because when a force is applied to those electrons, because they are loosely bound to their atoms in that specific metal or that specific conductor, that force that is applied is something called voltage, and this voltage is a pressure pushing these electrons onto their way through the conductor and into whatever it is that you directed those electrons to go to. And of course, when they're flowing, to remind you, it's called electric current when they're moving. After that force is applied through voltage, we get electric current. The way voltage works is like a battery. When you imagine the electromagnetic field, what's occurring is when you have an imbalance of these protons and electrons, they either create a force that pulls or pushes, because when you have an imbalanced atom, or you have an imbalance of positive energy and negative energy, they either attract or reject each other based off of whether there's a deficit or if there's just too much of something. And naturally, this is just how these forces they function. That's how they function. And so this imbalance creates this pressure that is then applied to electrons. And so the final thing is resistance. We talked about a conductor, and we talked about voltage, and we talked about electric current. We didn't talk about resistance, which is equally as important, because when we look at the old wires or the metal copper wires that carry electricity through those wires, or those coils that carry electrons and give you electricity, we have to talk about an insulator, which is the resistance. And that's something, those are atoms that are more tightly bound, therefore making it harder for electrons to flow through those or flow at all when it comes in contact with that insulator. This insulation or insulator is often the coating that you find on these copper wirings, the plastic around it, that special coating that doesn't allow these electrons to flow outside that space, containing it inside the conductor. This is useful for more specific, so that insulator helps keep all the electrons within the conductor moving in a calculated course. That's all I have for this video. Thank you for watching, and if you learned something new, maybe share this with your friend or somebody who you think would be interested. Go ahead, leave it a like. Appreciate you tuning in, and let me know how you feel about this. You guys have a good day, and I certainly will.